Alright, hello everyone. What's going on? As you can tell, we're going to be reading some One Piece today. Before we do that, we'll give everyone who's joining the stream a few minutes to join in. And in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and share the stream. Where are we? Hold on 1 second. Alright, and we are good. Alright, let's see who we got. Justin, what's going on, man? How you doing? What's up? I'm good. Trying to fit in stream for the week. Unfortunately, I wanted to do it earlier this week, but unfortunately, circumstances came up and I couldn't. But for the foreseeable future of this month, I should be able to do a regular streaming schedule. I don't know when I'm gonna do it next week, because I would like to start doing it on Sundays, but I don't know if I'm gonna do it. For next week, I'll probably do it like Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. And then after that, I'll do Sunday. But we'll see. Well, thank you, Gaming with Lamb. No problem if you can't stay for the whole stream, but I appreciate you joining in just to say hi. Yeah, we'll give everyone a few more minutes to pop in, and then we'll get started. What do you mean from the start? Have I checked out the Elusive Samurai episode 1? No, is it out? I didn't realize it was out yet. I just popped up in your feed and the question from the question from the beginning. Are you reading? Oh, yes and no. So for anyone who has zero context, so for a frame of reference, I have read One Piece before. I'm caught up on One Piece. This is just me rereading One Piece right now. Yeah, am I reading from chapter 1? Thank you. I started rereading it from chapter 1 earlier today, just off stream. So that's basically what we're doing. And obviously this is, for upcoming videos. As much as I love One Piece, if I wasn't doing this, I would be reading another manga just because I have a lot of manga I want to read. Yeah, so this is a reread. I have reread One Piece before, not fully. I think on my last read through, I read to like Skypiea. I finished Skypiea and then that was it. I believe so. I could be wrong. It might have been further than that. So on that note, I have a question for everyone in the chat. What is your opinion on early One Piece? Like, let's say, for the sake of conversation, One Piece aired today, and it was a brand new anime, or it was a brand new manga, excuse me. It was a brand new manga, and you could read all of East Blue in one sitting. Like, all the chapters were there. What would you say about East Blue? I haven't done a reread since right before Katakuri was first introduced. Yeah, so it's been a hot minute then. That's honestly, when did I do my last read through? It was probably during Whole Cake because, no, it was probably, so the last time I did a read through of One Piece was probably around like chapter 950 was like the newest chapter. But what do people think about East Blue? And the reason I ask this is because, well, for starters, one, so we have the new One Piece anime remake in the works from Wit Studios, and they came out with a tweet. I don't know who it was, but whatever person in their marketing came out and said, hey, we're working on the remake, and here's why we want to do it. For starters, some people don't like the format, so they don't like the ratio aspect, the aspect ratio of the older episodes. Totally reasonable. I think everyone agrees. If they had their choice, they'd have One Piece remade. And again, this is purely anime relevant. Obviously, this isn't a manga problem. The manga still looks just as good today as it did, whatever, 20 years ago, right? Decades ago. But the other thing they said was, you know, people want to watch the anime, like they don't want to have to watch all the old episodes, right? Like they want to watch it in a new, exciting way. Which gets into the other issue. So the first issue being a lot of hardcore One Piece fans are like, oh, that's disrespectful. One, because, well, now it just makes catching up to the new episodes, like, you just look stupid if you can just watch the remake, right? And their other issue is, well, the early stuff is already good. We don't need to, like, find new ways to make it interesting. So that gets into the other issue of, well, obviously that implies that, you know, early One Piece is somehow outdated or boring. So my question to you guys is, what is your take on early One Piece? And when I say early One Piece, I'm saying the East Blue saga and maybe Baroque Works. Baroque Works is, you know, pushing it, because at that point, you know, I don't know, that's what, like volume 8 by then? So I mean, yeah, you can include Baroque Works too. But I think when people talk about these issues, a lot of people are thinking more of East Blue. But you can include Baroque Works in the conversation. Daniel, hi, how are you? Pleasure to have you. East Blue is good, but I can't go through it again for a while, to be honest. Sorry. I can't go through it again for a while. Watching reactions plus the live action has tired me out on the first few arcs, which is my fault. And that's totally fine. And that's a completely different issue of like, I said this in an earlier video months ago, like there's going to be so many different ways to watch One Piece. It's going to be insane. Like, you have the original content, you have all those stupid like special episodes they did, you have the live action, which is definitely an accolade because like, I don't know how mainstream popular it was, but at least with anime fans, everyone loved it. So you have that. So that's 1, 2, 3. And now you have the remake. So this must be like a record, at least in the anime industry, for like 4 different ways to watch the same story. It's insane. So that's a completely different issue. If you watch, you know, OG One Piece, and then you watch the special episode, and then you watch the live action, and then you watch the remake, of course you would be sick of One Piece a bit. But the question I'm asking is, like, ignore the anime for a second. Pretend like we're just talking the manga, the story, Oda's art, right, in the source material. Is it old? Is it outdated? Is it just boring compared to the first arcs, sagas of other manga? Like, for example, how does it compare to, say, the first arcs of Jujutsu Kaisen? Or, to give you a more modern example, how does it compare to this ongoing arc, this ongoing first arc or so of Kagurabachi? Because Kagurabachi, I would argue, like, it's like tons of action right away. One Piece, you know, has some exciting stuff, but not so much intensity like Kagurabachi has. So, is that a weakness of the early One Piece stuff? Let me fix my chair here. I'm worried it's going to make One Piece become oversaturated. Yeah, One Piece is popular, but if you give us too much, it will dilute it. I don't know so much that it'll dilute it. I don't know if I'd put it that way, but it could turn into an issue, and I'm talking like brand new fans, people who are like, you know, younger generations, or people who are just getting into anime. It could turn into an issue of, like, now all of a sudden One Piece has become like the new Fate. Like, people who get into Fate, they like want to check out Fate because of the art style, but then they're like, well, where do you start? And then you have, excuse me, you have a fan of the Fate series coming out of the woodworks to be like, actually, to explain like the 30 different ways. Or here's another one, right? It could be like the new JoJo's. Excuse me. It could be like the new JoJo's, where like you want to get into JoJo's and, you know, you're like, oh, it has parts 1 through 6. I'll just start with part 1. And then you have a fanboy come out of the woodworks to be like, actually, what you should do is you should watch part 4, then part 2, then part 1, then part 3, then part 5, then go back to part 1, and then watch part 6, right? So it could actually, and I this is like a tinfoil hat theory. I don't really buy this. It's just a possibility. But I do think there's a realm of possibility where this actually kind of becomes a turnoff to more casual fans. Now, that being said, like, let's not kid ourselves. This is One Piece, excuse me. It doesn't have any problem getting fans. It's already one of the biggest manga of all time. However, if they're trying to build on what they already have, it's something to think about. I enjoyed East Blue, though. Getting through it in the anime is definitely a challenge. Yeah, and I won't argue that. I mean, you have the fact that they rearranged the order of the story, right? You have the fact that there's a bunch of filler. You have the pacing. So, I mean, that's definitely an issue, right? And you just have that, like, weekly episode format. But when I talk about this, I'm mainly just talking about the manga. Don't forget that video games, you have Pirate Warriors 3, tells the entire story until Dressrosa. That's true. East Blue is good because it introduces us into the world and we get to see Luffy assemble his crew. Yes, but a lot of people, or at least some people, will come back with, well, yeah, that's cool and all, but the story sucks. Or maybe if they're not that aggressive, they'll say, yeah, that's cool and all, but, you know, it's just not that exciting. Like, it's not, again, if we use a more modern, hardcore example, it's not Kagurabachi. Like, part of the reason Kagurabachi is so popular is, like, it's gory, bloody, intense, you know, exciting. It's got this, it's got that, all in the first chapter. Which One Piece has arguably one of the best first chapters of all time, but for very different reasons. Kagurabachi, you know, it does a good job of setting the premise, but obviously the big appeal is all the action at the end of the chapter. So somebody said they prefer Oda's art now compared to how he started. Interesting. So when you say that, right, you have to remember, like a lot of art styles, especially with One Piece's art style it's not just like the old and the new. It's more like it's gone through several stages. So, like, there's several stages of the old stuff, so up through Paramount War. And then I'd say there's at least 2 stages of, like, the art style in New World and after. I think they're going to do a remix of the manga, actually. I don't know if it's true, but apparently there's going to be a One Piece remix. I could be wrong. So, what do you mean? Like, in the anime? Like the new Wit Studio anime? What do you mean? Because I haven't heard anything about a remix of the manga. I would be very shocked to hear something about that. yeah. Let me see. Good lord. All right. Hey Luke, how you doing? Unfortunately, I haven't read any. Well, yes and no. I'm technically on chapter 50, but as for the actual stream, I haven't read anything yet. All right. Sorry about that for everyone in chat. Anyway, back to the discussion. No, like a redrawing of the manga? If you saw that on Twitter, can you link that? Because I haven't heard anything about that. Where are we? I looked it up. It's a character remix they are releasing. Yeah, if you have a link to where you heard about that, share that in the chat and I'll check that out. July 4th, it released focusing on characters. I haven't heard anything about that. Where are we? Here we go. Oh, I thought you were all caught up on One Piece, the manga. I am. I'm all caught up on One Piece. So, Luke, what I'm doing is I'm rereading One Piece for upcoming videos. So, for the purposes of this stream, I was just going to do some of that in the stream. But right now, we're just kind of talking about sort of the legacy of East Blue and early One Piece. You know, the state of early One Piece in the climate of all these remakes. And then I might talk about Bleach too, because I'm still pretty excited about that Bleach announcement, but we can save that for later. So I'll ask everyone this, and then we can move forward. So everyone agrees early One Piece is good. Oda is right. One Piece wouldn't have lasted if it came out today. I don't think that's necessarily true. And also, that's really hard to say, right? Just because One Piece is so influential, you can't really know what the current market would look like without it. That's almost like saying Dragon Ball, and not Dragon Ball Z. Like, I'm talking early Dragon Ball wouldn't last if it came out today. It's like, it's too hard to start making those comparisons because so many people have borrowed from it. It's like, how would you possibly, like disconnect everything and make the comparisons? Yeah, I try to do that with all my videos. I wanted to get these One Piece videos out this month in July, but when I went to go sit down and do them, I hadn't given myself enough time to look at everything as much as I wanted to. So when I went to go start them, I was like, you know what, I'm not feeling this. So that's why I had to delay those videos. Yeah, I try to do that with all my videos, and I don't necessarily go back and pick apart every little thing in every single chapter, but like, you know, if I'm doing a review or like sort of a recap on a manga or an anime, one of the best ways to do that is just to start from the beginning and kind of follow it at your own pace naturally, because that's how you're going to get that natural reading experience, which then leads to the best conversations, or the most authentic conversations. Because then when you go to talk about, you know, like, what manga do you like, what anime do you like, you can say, well, I like this one because I was reading it and this happened, and I thought to myself, oh wow, that was really cool, as opposed to like just having all these takes in your head and then you go to read it and like you're kind of just progressively affirming and rejecting a bunch of things that other people said, as opposed to just like kind of letting the manga take you on a journey, if you will. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's something I'd like to do in the future. It's just, it's been done so many times. I would have to really make sure I can do it in my own unique way. But yeah, One Piece villains are awesome, and Oda is a master of building up to those villains. What's up, Silver Dust? How you doing? Hello. So I'll ask everyone this, and then we'll move on. So we all talked about how we like early One Piece. So East Blue and Baroque Works. So I'll ask everyone this in the chat. What would you say is the biggest flaw of early One Piece? Like, what's something that you think holds it back? What's something that, you know, kind of makes you hesitate when you decide whether or not you're going to go reread it? What's something that sort of holds it back when you compare it to the first arcs of other manga, like, say, My Hero or Kagurabachi or Berserk or whatever? See, it's interesting that you say that. So somebody said that's a tough question. It's funny because, you know, everyone just kind of assumes that, you know, early One Piece is so outdated, it's so obsolete, it's so boring. And then when you really think about it, you're like, no, there's really nothing I would change, right? So let me put it this way. Alternatively, so question one, what's a drawback of early One Piece? Question two, what's something you would change about early One Piece? Let me ask you that if you don't have an answer to the first question. So we have Luke saying, I think it's just the lack of stakes at times is what holds it back, with Arlong and Smoker really being the biggest threats. I would agree. I think something that makes One Piece stand out is Luffy is unique in the sense that, like, when you experience that story for the first time, it takes a while, but eventually you're like, man, Luffy kind of wins all the time. Like, it's not until you get to Arlong Park that you're like, man, he's been kind of winning for a while, right? Like, nobody is touching this guy. And even then, when you watch him fight Arlong, he still kind of beats him pretty easy. Like, it's a good fight, but in retrospect, it's almost like Arlong never had a chance. So in that sense, it's different from a lot of other manga where it's not as suspenseful, I would say. I think it's just as intense as any other manga, but there's less moments where you're like, oh, is this the end of the story? Like, are we going to end it on, chapter 63? So hockey's an interesting one, right? Because another complaint about early One Piece is the power scaling and, the power system, and how with the devil fruits. Well, first of all, you have non-devil fruit people versus devil fruit people, and they kind of outclass. Like, if you don't have a devil fruit, you're like kind of out of the game, basically, right? And then within the people who have devil fruits, especially in early One Piece before, like Paramecia and Zoan's got all their subclasses, you have, like, if you're a Logia user, you're basically like nobody's touching you. Like, you're basically on top all the time. So I don't think that's something Oda really planned for, right? Like, I think he was just having fun with it. I don't really think he was out to make, like, a, I guess, nuanced power system. Let me see, but he did, I thought, know that. I could be wrong. I don't know if he actually meant to introduce hockey from chapter 1. It's been a while since I've looked at, like, the what do you call them? The, like, volume notes, the interviews, the questions, newsletters, whatever they're called. So something interesting to note. 1 second. All right, excuse me. Now, something interesting to note. Somebody said if they had to pick anything, what they would do is they'd make it, like, much more obvious, like, how big a deal Shanks is in the world. So something to note, this isn't quite what you're saying, because I know what you're saying. Like, they should have, like, spelled in black and white, like, hey, Shanks is one of the most powerful pirates in the world. Like, this is huge that he just casually knows Luffy. Oda didn't do that, but the earliest they really hinted that is if you go back to what the hell is Usopp's village, right? So when they meet Usopp, Luffy mentions, like, they start talking about like Usopp's dad, and they talk about Shanks. I think this is when they mention it. I'm pretty sure it's when they meet Usopp, but somewhere in like early East Blue, they're talking about Shanks, and Luffy's like, "Oh yeah, I know Shanks." He's like, "Oh yeah, cool, Shanks. You know Shanks." And they're like, "Wait, you mean like that Shanks, like red-haired Shanks?" And he's like, "Yeah, why?" And they're like, he's kind of a big deal." And Luffy's like, "Wait, really?" So not quite what you're talking about, but they do, as a matter of fact, and I'm pretty sure it's with Usopp, but early One Piece, like very early, they do make a point, if you're paying attention, like, hey, make sure you don't just forget about Shanks because he's important. Excuse me, I'm just reading some of these comments here. So Luke said, I would say those are my biggest criticisms: lack of stakes, and Buggy and Shanks' relationship not being as foreshadowed as it could have been. I mean, I guess, but again, it's a question of like, well, you know, how much did Oda really have planned out for their relationship, right? Because, like, he probably had a good idea, but, like, how much did he really have, like, fleshed out in his head at the time? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was with Usopp because, again, I'm pretty sure it was when they were talking about Yasopp. So something Egon Media brought up, I do wish the One Piece volumes included interviews that Oda did throughout the years. That'd make fans' jobs a lot easier on finding what Oda actually said and what he never said. So there's there's three ways Oda sort of talks to the community. He does the newsletters slash, what are they called? SMS, SNS, whatever. The like question and answer sections in the volumes. Now you don't get that if you're just reading weekly One Piece because, you know, it's not going to be in the chapters. But if you go back and you look at the volumes, it's in the volumes. So it's tough because when you start One Piece, you know, like it's gonna be like if you start One Piece on Viz, right? Like if you go back, they put all those on Viz, like on the digital format. But once you get to a certain SBS, thank you. That's what I was trying to say, not SMS. SBS. But once you get to a certain point in the manga, that's when, you know, they started doing the digital chapters every Sunday. So they stopped just copying and pasting, the manga to Viz, and now what you're reading is just the Sunday releases of each chapter, not the actual volume copies. So if you're not buying the volumes every time they come out, you kind of have to do your research on that. So that's one thing. You have the SBS. Then you have actual interviews, which is tough because I don't think Oda really does those all too often. And then the third thing is like he'll occasionally come out with comments, like when he does the movies, right? Like when he did the Shanks movie, One Piece Red, he came out with some comments about that. Like, look, and I think every New Year's he'll do a newsletter. Like, hey guys, I know I said 5 years, but actually it's 7 years. And also look out for Shanks, he might die this year. Haha, just kidding. Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, you do make a good point, especially like if you're caught up to One Piece and you're following it weekly. It is kind of tough, especially since he said so many different things over the years. It's kind of hard to keep track of what Oda has actually said about the manga. Yeah, that's the thing. Interviews with other mangaka. They don't really put those in the volumes. As far as I know. I have up through volume 97, 98, something like that. And as far as I know, they don't put interviews, like actual interviews in the manga. It's just volume notes / SBS stuff. Let's see. Oda's early version has Luffy's fruit special. It comes from Illusion Tree, which grows only 50 years. Was that in the one shot? The one where Nami has blue hair? I can't remember what it's called. So we have brand new. My theory is Oda had the D thing to reveal Luffy and Roger related, kind of similar to Star Wars. Yeah, I think it'll turn out that they're related. No, related in a way. Maybe not biologically, but probably in a way. So Jordan said some people don't like Usopp until Water 7. If you don't like Usopp from like the first chapter he's introduced, we can't be friends. That's all I have to say. On an unrelated note, I really liked your Rave Master art video. It was a good nostalgia trip. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I had a lot of fun reading Rave. I know it's not everybody's thing, but I wanted to talk about it, especially with the fairy tale stuff coming up. So everyone really seemed to enjoy those videos, and even now, like I only read it like a couple months ago and I already feel nostalgic about it. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Or excuse me, I appreciate that. But yeah. So I really only wanted the stream to be like an hour long, and we're already at about 45 minutes. Thy Rat King just subscribed. Thank you, Thy Rat King. Hello, I don't know. I don't know if I suddenly want a bunch of rats. Anyway, beside the point. So, with the 15 minutes we have, I know this is kind of off topic, but since it's been 45 minutes and I haven't actually done any reading, I think a good way to end the stream will be to talk about Bleach, because if you didn't see it all over the internet yesterday and this morning, Bleach got announced for a new game, a new console game. It's called Bleach Rebirth of Souls.
Car is making noises.
Excuse me, 1 second.
I should probably take it in.
Ooh, my phone.
So they're coming out with a new game, Bleach Rebirth of Souls. It's a 3D fighter or an arena fighter, right? So like Ninja Storm, like the new Jujutsu Kaisen game, like the Demon Slayer game. Um, Now, I'm a bit of a fighting game snob. I'm not like an OG when it comes to fighting games. I've been playing them since I was a kid, right? And when I say fighting games, I mean like, you know, like actual fighting games like Mortal Kombat, right? I've been playing fighting games since I was a kid, but I was always casual. It wasn't until the last few years that I really tried getting better at fighting games and like getting into the classics, like all the Capcom games and Tekken and stuff like that. Um, so I've never really been into all the like Ninja Storm ripoffs like they did for JJK, for Demon Slayer, right? This one for Bleach actually looks good. I don't know about the gameplay. I mean, to be fair, it's a arena fighter, right? It's a 3D fighter. So we can already tell the gameplay isn't going to be that nuanced to begin with. But that being said, given that I'm just going to accept that it's not going to have nuanced gameplay, I think the art style for the game looks really good. And that's saying a lot considering this is like the announcement, right? They always like polish it up a few times prior to the final product. So there's just something about the art style, like the characters don't just look like they don't look like they could be in, say, like the My Hero game or Ninja Storm or whatever. Something about all these like Ninja Storm clones, like all the characters seem really stiff and just like clunky. The animations and the art style, from the very little we've seen, look really good. So, as someone who likes more sophisticated, nuanced, whatever, fighting games, if they can just make it look good, I'm sold. Now, of course, I want to see more of the game, and I want to see like what they have for game modes, right? Like, do they have a story mode? Do they have online? What's the online look like? Do they have other game modes? Like, what can you unlock for content? What is there to do? If they can do that and make the game look aesthetically unique, I'll just play it for that. Because honestly, I don't need it to be like a super hard game. I just want to beat people up as Bleach characters. And I think that's really all you need. Now, something to note, it is being published by Bandai Namco, who usually does a lot of these fighting games. But if you look at the teaser, maybe they hit it somewhere in the description of one of these videos, I don't know. But they didn't actually put the studio. So for example, when they did Dragon Ball FighterZ, that was published by Bandai Namco, but Dragon Ball FighterZ was developed personally by Arc System Works, the people who do the BlazBlue games and Guilty Gear. And that's why, like, you can notice the gameplay in that game is a lot more exciting, than a lot of these Ninja Storm clones. Now, I don't think it's going to be someone like Arc System Works, given the style of the gameplay. But from what I know, right? Like, if it's one of the studios that Arc System Works usually works with, right? So, for example, Arc System Works, I think, published the Kill la Kill game but they had another studio develop it. If it's a studio like that, that's different, because I didn't play that game, but I seem to remember people saying that that game was actually pretty fun for being like an arena fighter. I'm curious to see who's actually making the game, because it's being published by Bandai Namco. That's like saying, oh, hey, there's this movie and it's being published by Disney. Well, half of the movies that come out are coming out on Disney, right? Disney Plus. So that doesn't really say anything. So we'll see. Excuse me, I'm gonna read some of these comments here. Maybe I've answered this in the past, but who is my favorite One Piece character and favorite Straw Hat? To answer both of those questions, it's a tie between Zoro and Vivi. My favorite One Piece character is one of the Straw Hats, and it's either Zoro or Vivi. If I think at this point we can count Vivi as a Straw Hat, but my favorite One Piece character is either Zoro or Vivi. If you put a gun to my head, I would probably say Zoro, but it kind of depends on what day you catch me on. Let's see. I believe we're getting a trailer for Core 3 of the new arc of the anime. Listen, I don't gamble, but if I was going to bet, I would say the next core of the anime is going to come out in either September or October. No later than like very early November. That's what I would say. I think it's just confirmed coming in October. Listen, like I said, I don't bet, but even if it hasn't been confirmed, it's pretty safe to assume it's coming out in October. We get so many new manga about swords and demons or gags, but no other pirate manga. I wonder why that is. I don't know, because unless you do it right, a pirate story is just like anything else. Like, look at how many genres One Piece touches on: science fiction, fantasy, you know, horror even. So One Piece is still a story about pirates, but it's kind of evolved into its own thing. Yeah, right, exactly like the situation with Sparking Zero. Am I caught up or reading from the beginning? So, again, the situation with me right now, and unfortunately it's just not going to happen in this stream, which is okay. We had a really good conversation. I am rereading One Piece from the start. I am technically caught up. I'm caught up on the very newest chapter whatever in Egghead Island. I am just, for my own purposes, rereading the manga as I prepare for upcoming videos that I'm working on. So right now, I started with chapter 1. As of right this second, I'm on like chapter 50. I don't know if Vivi's underrated, because Vivi's pretty popular. Maybe today she's underrated, but historically, she's been pretty fairly rated. I had Blackbeard my favorite, but after post-war he did nothing. Kind of waiting for something more reactive now. Bad writing. I wouldn't say bad writing, but it has made me curious, like, has Oda just like casually forgot about Blackbeard in a way, or is he kind of just putting him on the sidelines until his time comes? Because you have to remember, Blackbeard hasn't been like actively in the story per se, but a lot of people who work for him or are associated with him have. So he's been moving chess pieces, even if he's not on the front lines. On that note, we are approaching an hour, so I'll open the floor to a few more questions or comments, and then we'll wrap things up in about 3 minutes. In the meantime, I do want to say thank you to everyone in the stream. This was a great conversation. I didn't think it was going to be this consistent. And we got a decent turnout today, especially considering it was another unannounced, unscheduled stream. So thank you, everyone. It makes these streams so much more fun when people, pitch in, share their unique takes, hot takes, all of that good stuff. So I really cannot thank you enough. Yeah, Blackbeard has always kind of been like a slow burn, behind the scenes kind of character. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's just how he operates. I mean, look at what he did in the Paramount War, right? You have him do all the stuff in the back scenes of the story as early as Skypiea, right? Maybe even earlier. Fast forward to the Paramount War, right? Or whatever, and it's announced that he's a warlord. Fast forward to Paramount War, he shows up to the prison and he breaks everybody out. Fast forward to like the very end of the Paramount War, and he's like, hey, so I noticed everyone just got done killing each other. Cool, so now I'm going to kill everybody off who isn't dead yet, and also now I'm going to steal everyone's devil fruit, right? Like, that's crazy. So now that I say that out loud, Oda really hasn't, done anything out of character with Blackbeard. Because, I mean, that's just what he does. He kind of, like, schemes. He's a schemer. So it makes sense that, he's not, like, at the forefront of the story, because that's just not who he is. I just hope he doesn't get butchered later in the story. Yeah, that'd be kind of a big letdown. I think the way Blackbeard has been set up, if he is not like a seriously threatening major player of the end story, not only will that be bad writing, but I think it will be one of the biggest flops in all of manga. So fingers crossed on that one. But on that note, I think now is a good point to wrap things up. Again, thank you to everyone who came to the stream. Egon Media, brand new. We had Luke here for a bit, if Luke's not still here. Jordan, too. So thank you, everyone, for chipping in. I love hearing your questions. And it makes the conversation that much more fun for everyone and myself. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to stream tomorrow. I want to start streaming regularly on Sundays, but it's not going to happen next week. So I think what I'll do is I'll try to stream. I'll probably stream sometime either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I don't want to wait until Saturday next week, so I'll try for like Wednesday or Thursday, but we'll see. But anyway, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure as always, and I hope to hear again from you soon.